Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Atmosphere World Summit 2022 edition. This is the first of several premium webinars that we're going to have over the next 24 hours, covering a range of topics and refrigerants and applications. I have the pleasure today of kicking it off with an interview with one of the industry's leading thought leaders, CEOs, leaders, I would say, in the industry. His name is Andreas Meier. He's the managing director of TEKO Refrigeration, a German-based refrigeration manufacturer, OEM, that's been around for celebrating actually 40 years this year. And they have been working with natural refrigerants for a good number of years now. We're going to hear a little bit about this later today. Andreas joined TEKO back in 2015, the management team then. And I having followed the TEKO development in naturals, I can see that's very much linked with Andreas taking over and really pushing and seeing the opportunity of natural refrigerants. So he's been essential in that, together with a lot of his team members, obviously. Prior to TEKO, he worked for GEA for a number of years and also for Marc. So he's been in the industry for a good number, 20 years, a little bit more than 20 years. Gone all over the world, talked to a lot of the different players in commercial and industrial refrigeration, so has a very good overview of what's happening, what the trends are, and the opportunities. And we've only just started. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Andreas. But before I say anything, I've just been reminded by my technical team that for those of you that are watching this live now on the Atmosphere events platform, there's a Q&A button that you can press on at the bottom of your window where you can submit questions, and we'll take those questions at the end of this session. For those of you, otherwise for the others that are watching this live now on LinkedIn or on r744.com or on YouTube, we won't be able to take your questions, unfortunately. You'd have to log into the platform for us to be able to manage that. So, but hopefully you'll still enjoy this entertaining interview. All right, Andreas.
Yes.
Over to you. How's it going?
Yeah, fine. Actually, First day raining here in Germany. Now we have a very dry season, which is you see already this climate impact. So it's also an issue. So we are running out of water also in Central Europe. And so the first day raining, so the farmers are happy. Okay. And there is some fire alarms already in the forest because it's too dry. So the season is too dry for March, which is will be a big impact for the summertime. But this is a different topic we need to talk about. But you see something is going on. Huh?
But I guess that's also why you do what you do, because you know that all these technologies that you're developing and bringing to market actually help mitigate climate change.
Of course.
So,
of course.
And it's key. It's a key motivator for you, for your team, for your family, right? So
yeah, we want to stay in long term. Yeah, but first of all, I have to say what your introduction makes me a little bit ashamed. Huh? So it's not only on me. Just to be very clear, it's the whole team, and especially also my colleague Edgar, because he was driving. He's my managing director partner, and basically he was driving natural refrigerants already before I joined. So the journey of TEKO natural refrigerants is much longer history than when I came in. So it's not on my shoulders and my success. So it's success of TEKO. It's not my success, just to be very clear, because it's.
I know. It's always a team effort, and that's the job of a CEO, right? Is to manage that team. And in the case of TEKO, you have a dual managing directors, as often in many German companies. It's a dual managing director role.
Yeah.
But you're the more active one on the marketplace, right? The one that, that people tend to see in the market. Yes. So I mean, all right. So we've got a number of questions that we're going to cover over the next 50 odd minutes, and I guess the first one is, tell us a little bit about the TEKO. Who are you? What are you? Because there are a lot of people that are going to be watching this from around the world, and you're well known in Germany and in Europe, but outside, still not that still not that known. So for those of us that are watching from around the world, and we're expecting about 100 different countries to log in today, who are you? What is TEKO? What do you do?
What we do, yeah, that's a tough one. I prepared a small presentation, only 4 slides, to show a little bit what TEKO is about, because I think it's important that people know us and where we are. But basically, what is TEKO about? It's not only a company; it's a kind of feeling. So if you talk to our employees, it's not only because it's not a company, but it's more a partnership with our partners in the market. So it's not only a company which is focused on result. Of course, we are result oriented, but this is like partnership, friendships. This is about TEKO. So to be honest, so it's very shortly said. I will just share the presentation, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So it's just a short presentation, because today, not today, but this year we have our 40 years anniversary. So we are 40 years in the market. So we are founded, yes, thanks a lot. But unfortunately, due to all this COVID, it's not clear how to celebrate. We will celebrate, but it's strange circumstances, as everybody knows.
Yeah.
We started with just as a trading company for components. And then after the years, people ask, hey, can you not put it on a frame? Can you not include some pipings? And that's where it always starts from. And we very early start with the company Wurm Controls in Germany, probably it's also known in the market. And we are basically Wurm Germany. So we are distributor of Wurm in Germany. We take care for service and so on. So this is also one of our footprints. Nowadays, we have in our group around 300 employees and quality made in Germany. 40 years is a long time. And I think the company can be really proud of it, what they achieved in all the years. And being sustainable in the market for 40 years, privately owned, is something which is not bad, in my opinion.
It's not easy to do.
Yeah, what do we do internationally? We have subsidiaries. We have an other production area in Austria, Frigopol, company called Frigopol. We are in Poland with an own company, and we have a joint venture in Thailand, TEKO Thailand. And we have, of course, international offices in Italy and France. And
so
we have a lot of partners.
In Asia, in Thailand, you have a manufacturing facility there.
Yes.
Correct. Okay.
In Thailand. Yeah, Thailand was very quiet the last 2 years because of all the restrictions. You cannot travel in. So now it changed. Hopefully get better to on a normal track.
Yes.
So our sales growth maybe is interesting when we start 2016, and we just shared the percentages, and you see it's mostly dedicated to netto refrigerants, which you see the shares. Yeah, sorry.
So that's so you've grown every year since, and it's interesting you picked 2016 because that's when the F-gas regulation, the current version, came into effect. So you can see that with the F-gas regulation and in Europe, and that there's been a consistent growth, and it's really picked up from 2020 to 2021. Why?
Yes, there are several reasons. So the market is quite a lot of demand on the market, to be clear. And of course, we are also going as company more and more international, as you probably recognize. So in the past, we were more oriented on the East Europe and on a Germany-based area, German-speaking area, say like that. And now we are going more in English-speaking areas, Netherlands, Belgium, France, and so on. So where we are active, this is also part of our growth. So it's some part is dedicated to the F-gas regulation, yes, but some part also there. And we should not forget in 2020, 21, the price increases we all had, unfortunately, from our suppliers. So there is also some percentage in, which doesn't give you a good result at the end of the year, but it's also what is happening. So that there are price increases, which also is, of course, a growth in the sales because everything is getting more expensive, which we are seeing now again, unfortunately, with the Ukrainian crisis and the war there. But that's a topic we can later on talk about.
Correct.
The shares of CO2 and Freon in our company, probably most of you know these slides, and other companies have the same. F-gases is really, the shares in our company is less than 10%. We are around 3-4% now, which is giving, of course, a lot of headache because you don't have the stock anymore. And you get an order, all these things, your production is not prepared anymore for these things. So we are really fully dedicated natural refrigerants, and that's mostly for us CO2. We're also doing ammonia, but this is done, which we produce normally in Frigopool area because they are more made for that production area. So you see the shift is coming really towards it. And it's, of course, due to the F-gas regulation and what is happening in the market, and that the retailers and the industrial areas want to get rid of F-gas and want to have a future-proof solution. And
yeah, but what's interesting here is that in 1 decade, you completely switched over.
Yes, you see the large switch was also for production was happening in 2015, 16, when you really have to transform your production, otherwise you have a lot of conflict. So you need to reinforce everything to get to that one. And it's quite hard if you come from the F-gas side because you have to have different tooling, you have to double everything. And you have to have double stock because it's different pipes. Everything is different. So,
and this is, I guess this transition, as you mentioned, this is quite similar to a lot of the different manufacturers in Europe that work in the CO2 space.
Yes,
they've had that transition of the ones that had F-gas to start with, because there are a few that started purely with naturals when they were in startup mode. But then, for the ones that started with F-gases, that transition's probably been a similar pattern to yours. And this is in Europe. So given that Europe's been leading the world in this space, you could expect that for other manufacturers around the world to, in this decade, in the 2020s, a decade later, to have a similar transition, right? Is that your kind of expectation, that others will follow suit?
Yes, it's just a matter of time. You see this 10 years time frame, and other markets are behind that. But I think the future is natural, and we see the impact on a daily basis. As I said before, we have to take care for our environment. Outside is not anymore since 10 years ago. And you are a skiing guy. I was also skiing a lot.
Yes.
But where can you go skiing nowadays? You have to go to the Alps. It's not anymore like before.
Yeah, true.
Before I had a skiing area where I was living in Bavaria, where I was born. It was 5 kilometers away.
Yeah.
There is no snow anymore, as in years.
Yeah. Unless it's artificial, right?
Even that is not possible anymore because temperature is too high in the winter. So
true. So in terms of units sold, over the 40-year journey, you've installed as a company 40,000 plus systems around the world, or in Europe, essentially.
Yeah.
How much of that is CO2 now in terms of units?
As you see, the numbers just started 10 years ago to grow in a massive number. That's a hard one, because on a Freon you have a lot of small racks, which is, if you talk about the small bakers and, the small butcher where you have 1-2 kilowatt, 3 kilowatt units. This is a large number, but this one we don't do anymore. So that means, if we go back now maybe we are at a share of 20%, 25% nowadays on racks, what we manufactured up to now, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
But you see it's growing year by year because Freon is...
So that number vaguely is between 5,000 and 10,000.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Now, in terms of 2021, it picked up the sales, as you mentioned. Have you got another slide to show, or?
I don't think so. Thank you for listening.
Yeah.
I will just stop sharing.
Okay. And then, so regarding, what's your projections in terms of growth in 2022, in this very uncertain year that started, we came out of COVID, well, we're coming out of COVID, thinking, yippee, it's going to come back, business is back, and then boom, someone in, we don't need to talk about, well, we will talk about Ukraine, obviously. It's terrible what's happening over there.
Yes.
But that changes a little bit the dynamics, right? Because now it's now potential of an economic recession. And how are you factoring all of these new challenges into your business planning for the year 2022?
As the last 2 years showed, planning is a planning, and reality is something different. But basically, it's coming back to supply chain and to having employees, because that is the biggest issue we are having in Europe, at least in Central Europe, to having enough employees which want to work on a workbench. And you find office people much easier than work on a workbench nowadays.
Okay.
You get easier on technician than you get people on the workbench. That is really something which is impacting, of course, the further growth, but also the impact on the supply chain. And the market is still on a high. So we see a big demand, we see orders coming. So mostly we're losing orders because of delivery time. We're not losing orders it's there. The market is completely there. So this is something which is good. But supply chain is still an issue, and it's getting, every week you have a different announcement from another supplier that there is some issues. But it is like it is, we are fighting now since 1 year, we said. You remember when we had a talk 2 years ago, I said supply chain will get an issue.
Yeah.
And it finally arrived. But this is one of the biggest issues I think, for all the companies in our industry is supply chain. Because you have to switch suppliers, it's really.
So is it forcing you now to actually have multiple suppliers from multiple locations in order to get that reliable supply?
Unfortunately, yes. I think everybody has to try to get supplies. In former times, people were used to having one supply line, which is also our preferred. But nowadays, you have to have at least 2 suppliers, because otherwise you have a big impact on your business if that one cannot deliver. And in some parts, we already have 5 suppliers because we don't know which one is delivering in a time.
Okay.
So this is.
And when you're like installing projects, are some of your customers, your end users, are you in a situation where you're having to install the project with some suboptimal components, but then knowing that some of those components will come a few weeks later, you're having to reinstall them? Is that something that you're looking at?
Not really. We try to avoid that because the impact is too big, to be honest. Up to now, we always managed to be in a time, more or less, because maybe some delay, but mostly we try to be on a time. And that's why we give reliable delivery dates. It doesn't make any sense to say I can deliver in 4 weeks, and then I say, hey, it's 12 weeks. So, but luckily, as we are not in a stock exchange company, so we have a working capital is not our problem. So, in all this Corona crisis, we doubled our stock. So the stock is at the moment is about 20% of our yearly turnover is what we have on a stock value, actually. So we doubled our stock, which is of course also a cash flow issue, and all the things coming in. But basically, you need to do, because otherwise you're not sure if you will be supplied in the time. So this is also overheating the whole market, because everybody is doing the same. So everybody's ordering at a different suppliers, but that's also giving an high to supplier side.
So your suppliers are all happy because you've created a buffer. You've created a buffer that's beyond what the normal situation would require, right?
Yes.
So, but you said normally to deliver a rack. Yeah. What time frame are we looking at now? What are you committing to your customers?
It depends on the size of rack and what it is. It is between 6 and 12 weeks. So if it's an industrial rack, handmade, whatever, then you're talking about 14, 16 weeks. But it depends also on capacity, because our order book is full. So delivery time is getting longer because capacity is not there. So
your capacity is full right now. Your order book is full.
Yeah, at the moment, yes, but this the view is not very long.
Yeah. And you're expecting that to grow. I mean, we've got Chillvent at the end of this year, which is that's the global refrigeration show, basically, right? Everyone who's anybody in this industry from anywhere in the world goes to Chillvent in October. You'll be present there. And there's an expectation when I talk to a lot of the different players in the market that, the second half of this year, calendar year, things are really going to pick up again. Is that your feeling? Is that your feeling that after the summer things will, grow, go back to normal in terms of supply chain issues, and you'll be able to deliver more, and there'll be more and more business and more demand?
I hope so, but I'm not sure. We see the impact on the electronics is still there. Okay. So we all hope that it's getting back to normal. But you see, the big industries, car industries, whatever, have big supply problems. And, they are buying also everywhere and try to get everything. So I don't know when we are out of that. And the big impact will be from China. If China is closing some ports again because of Corona, because they have a really very strict Corona policy, that. Yeah. So that means the impact, we all don't know. That is something.
If they close it for a week, it's negligible impact. But if it's for weeks, then that will definitely have an impact, right? Yes. But you mentioned China. You've done a lot of business in China. You've got a lot of relationships there, and you said something interesting that I'd never heard before as we prepared for this interview. That China doesn't seem to have these bottlenecks. When you talk to your contacts active in the Chinese market, which is a huge market in itself, they don't have the same supply chain issues that we have here in the West. No. Is that, maybe you can share that? I mean, how did you hear about that? That's no one ever talks about this in our industry.
Basically, you ask your friends and whatever is happening, because everybody has the same supply problems. And you ask them, and some of them have factories in China, and you ask them, do you have problems there? No, they don't have problems there. So they are having normal delivery times. And it's also, people want to go to China and buy in China directly. That is also happening at the moment. But, it's not, in our industry, you cannot be one-to-one. You also have to be loyal to your normal suppliers in certain circumstances, because loyalty is not the one way, it's always two ways. And when we come back to normal, I think, we always have reliable business relationships, and this should also count, in my opinion. I don't say that you can have a relationship with China, don't get me wrong, but now everything is getting so geopolitical, and what to do left and right, and this is wrong, this is right. So it's strange. But we're coming back that we in Europe are normally very strong. So especially natural refrigerants, and this is something we should reinforce. And we are leaders in Europe. If it's the compressors, it's the control systems, the heat exchanger, nearly everything is coming from Europe. The technology is coming from Europe and driving the market. So as European manufacturers, I think we all together have to go the same way and the same line.
I mean, but you're right to talk about those now, but a lot of those manufacturing facilities are outside Europe, right? And if we link China and Ukraine, I mean, you read the press and you get the impression that we're maybe entering a new Cold War, right? And what that's forcing a lot of CEOs to think about across different industries is to think, okay, well, should I actually manufacture in some of these countries that maybe aren't reliable anymore? And that will force maybe some manufacturers in our industry to maybe manufacture back in Europe or in other regions of the world than has been the case so far. Is that something that you've discussed internally in the management team?
Not really, to be honest, because we are focused on where we are. So basically, we are Germany, Austria, we are Europe centralized, and to have a plant in Thailand is okay. But the impact is, of course, there. But there's a long history TEKO had also with China. But this is something maybe not nice to say, but I think it was in 95, 96, we supplied 2 big screw units to China, and later on. One of my colleagues went there for a startup commissioning support. And during the time the units were there, it was 2 months. 2 months later, there were 8 other screw units with the same design, completely the same from us, standing in the same machine room. So, that was the point of time where TEKO management decided at that time not to go further. Right? That's maybe a bad experience. Other companies had a good experience. So it's just, you cannot say if it's right or wrong. Huh? No, I don't want to say. No. Sure. It's also clear.
Sure. But that was a decision that you took as a corporation. Okay. Yeah. All right. So the Ukraine situation, if we try and beyond the conflict and all the suffering, which is a terrible thing, if we think of the economic impact, whether that's going to cause some kind of recession because of all the energy prices rocketing up, that's a huge concern, especially in Germany, which gets a lot of its gas and oil from Russia. But if we look at it from a refrigeration sector impact, everyone is now talking about heat pumps. Everyone's going heat pump crazy. It's like everyone in the world is saying heat pumps will fix everything, right? So I mean, how do you what's your take on that?
Yeah, it's the problem. It's the same problem with electrical cars. You know, you have to have the supply line for that one also. So the electrical demand will rise, but it's okay. So for us, heat pump is a good solution. We all know it's technically wise perfect. But my concern is that the movement now is from the chemical industry is they are moving into a direction which is not good, because basically, you know, we all know that the F-gas regulation is now under revision and whatever. And my fear is that there will be people making influences on that, try to get rid of that because otherwise we cannot supply, which I don't think is true, because everybody of the big suppliers has already heat pumps with natural refrigerants in his pocket. And some of them already ready. It's on the market. You go to the web page, you found it. If we talk about domestic market, I think it's not a big problem. And it will be a big impact, I'm quite sure. And it will be also next impact for our industry to get more on the heat pump side, because the demand is clearly there. You know, before you're always discussing heat pump, makes it sense, yes or no, electrical price, gas price, but now it's not anymore about the price. Now it's about to having supply. And that is something which is, you know, in Germany now we talk about getting back to atomic plants, you know, all these discussions which are now going on. If it's good or bad, you know, I'm not a politician. I just can say what is my opinion. So I think the influence will be good, but of course it will create a shortage on components, because if it's getting demand for heat pumps is getting higher, you know, the supply chain has to rise up on nearly every components, and then there will be again an impact on the supply chain. This is something which might hurt us a little bit, but basically it's good. But again, we're coming back. People have to be trained. You know, people have to know what they do, and I think it's a good market.
But didn't we have that similar discussion 10 years ago when it came to commercial refrigeration, where the proponents of HFC-based solutions were saying, "Oh, we don't have enough supply for the market demand," and then guess what? Naturals delivered well beyond the market demand and are now basically the standard practice in Europe and many countries of Europe. Couldn't we assume the same here for heat pumps, given that there's a lot of crossover knowledge and a lot of the players are the same?
Of course, if you see the manufacturers of the components, their tooling, you know, they already do the components for natural refrigerants. It's just a matter of to switch the other machines. The same thing we need to do in our production. You know, you need to switch your machines from a Freon side, HFO side, to the natural side, and then you have to have a different tooling, but it's already there because they're already producing such products. So I think it's just stay where you are. But you know, if we look outside, and as the climate change is going on, and you, Mark, have children, I have children, and you know, I want to also say they have a good life like we had, you know, when we were young. And
yeah, but I totally agree, Andreas. But the reality is, it's going to get worse before it possibly gets better, and they're going to blame us for that. And it's getting worse every day. And you know, I mean, all the press that you get out of the COP26, what's really happening? I mean, it's depressing, but okay. I'm a positive person. I always try and think that we can solve this, and we will. And in our industry, we've got solutions today to replace all HFC-based solutions that are super efficient. But you know, there's a lot of what's the word? Industry dynamics in play. That you know.
But you know, it's now we're coming back to the same issue. Now we have microplastic everywhere in our blood, everywhere. Now we try to avoid the plastic. And the same is going on, you know, if you talk about the HFOs, as you know, we know what is happening on a long-term run. You know, TFA and all these things which is happening, and then we have an acid rain, whatever. So I'm not sure if this is the right solution. Huh?
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about HFOs in a minute, because I think in Europe, there's definitely a different level of knowledge with regard to HFOs and some of their health and safety environmental impacts that we're more and more aware of. But in other markets, that's still not the case. In the US, there's still a different level of knowledge in that respect, unfortunately. But we'll talk about that in a minute. I just, on the bigger picture stuff, we talked about China and Ukraine and heat pumps. Is that something that you as TEKO are looking into? Is that a potential new application area that you could investigate, or if you're allowed to say anything on that?
Yeah, it's not new, heat pumps is done for a long time, also with natural refrigerants. We do already a long time. But, the big market is on the domestic side. And this is where we are not looking into, because this is not something we can compete with anybody of these. This is very clear. But on the other side, industrial, yes, of course. Now at the moment in the R&D, we are testing a new high energy efficient system exactly on that one, but on a large scale and not on a small scale. That is not where we are looking into. But, heat pumps, when I was in GEA or in MyCom, we saw it very big heat pumps. And also I know nowadays for MyCom and for GEA, and I think also for Johnson Controls, it's a big market. It's a heat pump market. It was rising also the last 10 years, but now, they are selling units which have megawatts for industrial processes, which is great. And I think this one will be for them a big boom, but I guess also for our, let's say, in the middle area, industrial area, also a big boom, because the market is demanding that. And, I saw yesterday some news, a lot of companies now have to close down because of the energy crisis, because they're using gas boilers and they cannot afford anymore, because they're losing daily a hell of a money. And that's a big impact. And some companies, if they switch, they need to reduce the energy costs, at least to have a reliable calculation on energy costs.
Yes.
That is, I think, more the game, at the moment, you have to have reliable sources. And I think it will be a big impact and will be a big driver also in the next years for us, for all of us. And, a heat pump is a refrigeration cycle. So it's nothing what we all can deal with. It's our daily business. Huh? I think for everybody of us, all the other manufacturers are on the same game. Yeah.
And you expect competition between ammonia heat pumps, CO2 heat pumps, hydrocarbon heat pumps, depending on?
Not really, because it's really, the market is, we see now, we see on, for example, some markets, we are now checking propane heat pump and the normal refrigeration unit, or you make an integral unit, which one is the best for the customer. So it's different options, but ammonia is more on the bigger size. You talk about up 1 megawatt, 800 kilowatts, and it starts to be the right one. And below, yes, the CO2 will come up, and CO2 will get maybe like in industrial refrigeration shares on that side, but the limits are on a certain range there. But the manufacturers are working on bigger compressors, as we all know, and I think Juventa will show some nice products from their side, and with the bigger compressors, you are more easier getting into bigger capacities also on CO2. This will be, I think, a headache for the ammonia manufacturers, I think, more and more as the compressors getting bigger. This will come up. But heat pump is definitely a big market. But unfortunately, is always ups and down in the heat pump market, because it was always driven by energy prices. Some years you had a very high demand, a lot of projects. The next year, gas price was low, so going the same way back. So let's see. I think it will come, and it will come fast, and it will grow fast.
Yeah. The question will be: will it be natural or non-natural or synthetic? That will be the challenge. And
but it's the same game like with the normal. If everything is there. You have the perfect refrigerants for every application. You have ammonia, you have propane, you have CO2. So choose one. Huh?
Okay. All right. So one other big picture thing, question theme, COVID. That has dominated our world for the last 2 years. It's basically 2 years last month, right? Since the world shut down, started shutting down. I mean, how's that been for a manufacturer to manage the production? Because on the sales and marketing and admin stuff, you know, everyone's working remote now. Okay, we've all kind of got used to that life. But from the production side, how's that been? You know, how have you managed outbreaks of COVID in your team? Has that been a challenge? How have you done that?
It was always a challenge. You know, we were in the production, we didn't have any COVID cases for 2 years, but since in 1 month ago, it came. And so 3 weeks ago, we had 60% of production people out.
Wow.
But, you know, we not allow anybody outside of production to go into production. At a certain time, we made everyday tests with our staff. Nowadays, we do 2 times a week tests. You know, everybody has to make a test. The problem is the law in Germany is not allow you to force them to do that. So you have to ask them to do that, but everybody want to do that.
Doing it. Yeah.
But efficiency loss, because, you know, people from design department cannot go to production. Even we separated the production in different areas. So we have 3 halls, we separated all the areas. You're not allowed to move out without mask. All these things we have done, because if we have some cases, to get it into a small corner, not to lose the whole production capacity. But efficiency, we also went in the hard times 1 year ago, 1.5, we went to 2 shift system to getting even less people. And to be honest, in production, the COVID overall efficiency, 20% loss.
20% reduction in efficiency from your production because of COVID.
Because you cannot allow you cannot allow the logistic people to move easy in. You have to say a certain time, you know, all these things which is happening. And but you know, there is no other way, because I don't want to shut down the production completely. So we need to do all these matters otherwise. But you know, now we have a bigger problem, because yesterday we had a meeting with our management team, because now we want to bring the people more back to get more closer to our company. Because if somebody's just working remotely, he's not getting any more the touch of everything. And how to get somebody back, which is now 2 years in the home office, very comfortable. And now with the energy prices, you have to tell him, like 2 years ago, please come every day to the company and drive 50 kilometers one way. Whatever you do as manager, you do it wrong. I can tell you upfront. It's a disaster at the moment.
I agree on that one.
But you know, also the impact we are having now on the energy prices. We just had our round what we do on the increase of the salaries. You know, people were asking for, and we decided to make a fixed amount for everybody. So production and for office people, management, doesn't matter. Everybody gets the same amount. So that's why we try to support the production people, logistics, whatever, which earn less, to having much higher impact than people who are earning much. Because even some of our employees said, I have to drive every day 60 kilometers. Maybe next week I sleep in the car.
Whoa.
You know, it's like, okay, this is happening at the moment. Huh?
Okay. Yeah, that's extreme. Okay, yeah. No, all right. No, that is a big concern.
Yeah. So, but COVID was really more on the supply chain. It's the biggest issue, to be honest, because last year, a lot of manufacturers did not know when they supply the components. You get an order confirmation, you get another order confirmation, and even sometimes it's already delivered, the supplier doesn't know. So last year was really terrible, I think, for everybody in our industry. So we managed, but if we look back, strange that we managed everything, to be very clear, because and the effort inside of the company, you know, the purchasing department and all the technicians, I think for everybody of the manufacturers, the same game. Because if you use a new component, you have to check the component. Is it right? Can it be mounted? You have to make new, you know, everything changed. And this was a big impact for us. Big impact.
Yeah, and you made it. And you're growing. Okay.
Yeah. But you know,
but
everybody has the same problem, because you want to develop some new products and new things, but you're so busy with all your stuff to taking care for the supply chain and checking everything, whatever, and you know, that you cannot go for new products. So I think it was for everybody the same. So 1 year you lost a little bit on, the drive to develop new products. And if you develop a new product, then you say, hey, now the product is ready. And then you ask your supplier, yes, now I need it, products, I need your supply. I need this one component, these numbers, because we want to start serial production. And he tells you, yeah, delivery time, 110 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, super. And now you have a product.
So that's gonna push manufacturers to look at more simplified systems, right? In this interim period, as we get back to normalized supply chains, right? And possibly also more localized manufacturing, which shall have benefit in terms of the carbon footprint overall. But yeah, it's a challenge, right? I mean, you've got Chillventa coming at the end of the year. This is a big event for you and for the industry.
Yes.
Well, are you planning some exciting announcements for that?
We have always announcements and exciting ones, huh? But I think Chillventa, everybody will show what it is in his pockets the last 2-3 years. And I think everybody's desperate to go out and meet the people.
Yeah.
In Europe, traveling now is quite easy. If you go abroad, it's more difficult. There's all the paperwork and so on, as you probably also know. But I think everybody want to meet each other.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to meet people again. I think everybody.
It will be 4 years, right, between the last Chillventa. So that's a huge amount of time in our industry.
Yeah.
So much has happened since then. So you're expecting a lot out of this event.
I think so. Yeah, at least a lot of friends. What is Chillventa? Chillventa is not the exhibition where you make where you meet a new customer, you make a big shot. It is not. But you meet a lot of friends, you meet a lot of colleagues, you meet a lot of competitors even, and having good talks. It's also missing to discuss about markets, but also to it's a community of refrigeration. I think is very important to come all together and see what is happening.
No, absolutely agree. I was at a recent trade show in the US, and I hadn't seen some of our partners there for 3 years, and it was just a real pleasure just to meet in person again. Exactly. And it definitely, we all need it. We're human, right? We need that interaction, that socialization. Zoom is great, but it has its limitations. So, looking at the time, we got like another 5 or so minutes. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing in Colombia.
Yeah, in Colombia, we are now assembling our first racks already. We did already last year. We have a partnership with the company Weston, and we will found a new company in the next weeks that we start the production in South America.
So you'll be manufacturing CO2 racks for industrial and commercial in Colombia.
Yes.
That's a pretty big decision, right? For a European player, mid-sized player, to partner up with a local partner. Weston, you mentioned, will be presenting later today for the Americas session. Why? What's so exciting about the Latin American region?
Basically, it all starts with the people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, in my opinion, you can make everywhere a good business if people fit together and you have a common understanding of business. And that is exactly what's happening with Weston. So it's privately owned. You have a very good relation, and then things start rolling. And I think then the market is there in South America. The climate conditions are perfectly in some areas for CO2. It's a nice market. It's a nice culture, and the people are not afraid. Go ahead. And to be honest, when I was there and I expected installations where I said, oh, yeah, let's go to Colombia and see what they installed. I can tell you, I have seen a lot of machine rooms in my life. And it's not fair to my other partners maybe, but the machine rooms I have seen there.
Excellent.
Excellent. Really excellent.
Well, are you saying they're nearly as good as German ones? I'm teasing that, right? We won't get into that joke, but it's nearly, that's because coming from a German, that's a big compliment.
But you know, I learned in my life a lot of things that other countries and other regions are the same. When I was, I think, 15 years ago in Thailand, you know, as a product manager for heat exchangers, I was going there and with my local partner, and I want to explain something about superheat and so on. Mm-hmm. And then I was going at a side, and then I realized I'm a stupid idiot. Huh? These guys have really knowledge. So it's not only the Europeans which have knowledge, but you know, sure. It's also other people in areas. And if you talk to them, and the quality they're delivering is really great. And also the supermarkets, you go inside and you're feeling like in the concept of the stores. Unbelievable, nice. It's really like you come back with a lot of ideas, you know, what, and then you go to a local store here around the corner and you say, okay, Colombia looks nicer. Maybe, you know, is something which is also there. And, but basically we're coming back to having relations, you know, and if you see there is a market, then you should take the opportunity.
And the idea behind this partnership, the strategic partnership in Colombia, is to obviously support growth for CO2 in this case in Colombia, but also Latin America, Central America, or beyond.
Yeah, let's start with.
Let's start with.
We are just starting. You know, we are now. You know, the components are on the way. The next ones, so the next units we are building there again, and one colleague will move over to be dedicated there, and I think it's a good. But you know, it's relationship. You know, if you have relationship, and relationship has to be built up, and then I see no problems there, and. You know, the delivery time from Europe is too long. So you need to have a local manufacturing.
And is the market potential for Latin America huge for natural refrigerants?
Yes. Yes.
Similar to what we have in Europe?
Less.
Okay.
Less. Okay. Because, you know, you have a very cheap brands and you have more expensive ones. And of course, the cheap ones will not pick it up in the first instance. So there has to be some more pressure. But some Latin American
but we had that in Europe too. We had that in Europe too. Yeah. Do you expect that maybe some Latin American governments might subsidize or offer incentives to introduce this new tech?
I think so. I think so. Okay. And we see that the market demand is rising, and it was for me also strange at that time, you know, when everything starts, because it's far away. You know, I had a telephone conversation with Richard from Weston, and, you know, we just discussed that. And in the beginning I said, yeah, but you're sure in Colombia, you want to do that? I said, yes, I want to do that. So it was a long discussion how it should operate. But basically, yeah, it worked out, and sales is good there already, but we need to be local. Otherwise delivery time is too long. You cannot supply the market from Europe. It will not work.
Okay. All right. Okay, so we got 10 minutes to go. So this is a shout out to people viewing this session within the Atmosphere events platform. You have a button below, says Q&A. Please post any questions there in the next few minutes, and then Andreas will do his best to answer those questions. So now's your chance to raise some questions. In the meantime, as you get ready and post those questions, in the meantime, I do have another series of questions regarding policy. Andreas, so the expectation is that the European F-gas regulation will be the new version, the amendment to the current version will be proposed by the European Commission next Wednesday, the 6th of April. That is the expectation, that it will be announced then in a week's time. What are you hoping will come out of this regulation? What still needs to be done? What still needs to be improved from your perspective with this third version of the F-gas regulation, which is considered to be the leading regulation in our space globally today?
Should be more ambitious. So the restriction on the GWP side should be really go back as low as possible. And GWP, above 50, above 10, just leave it out. It's a hard one, but to be honest, everything is ready. And if there's transition period, it's like in the last time, it has to be regulated, and then it will come anyway.
Wow, that's ambitious.
Yeah.
10, 50 GWP. This is when we still have elements of the industry that are looking at below 2,500.
Yes, I know.
So, but there are other parts of the world that are seeing 150 as the kind of the de facto standard now. And we've seen some of the synthetic guys come out with their new blends that are surprisingly or not just under 150. So there's even that expectation from their side. But, this is pretty radical. This is across all the different applications.
Yeah, of course, because I think everything is there. So you have air, you have everything on the low temp side, you have everything nearly there.
Mm-hmm.
So why not to push that? And, in air conditioning, everything is there. Everything. What we are not now doing is the same with Ukraine. Yeah, but we still need to take the gas, Just say yes or no. And we all know the impact, what is happening. And then you have this flammable one. Yeah, okay, it's A2L, it's slightly flammable. Huh? Like I said last time, I cannot slightly cheat my wife. I can cheat her or I cannot cheat her. But there is no slightly cheating. That's it. Yeah, but it's like that. It's the same as, Russia is very bad, but your gas we still need to take. If you're not having the hard balls to put it through, it will be a problem.
Okay. So you're saying we need more and a more ambitious regulation. Okay. So the expectation is that once this is coming out, proposed by the European Commission next week, then there's going to be a negotiation between the European Parliament and the Council of Ministers, where the member states sit, like Germany, France, and many of the other 27, or all 27 countries of the EU. So they will negotiate over a period of time. So probably by next summer, 2023, we should have a good idea of what will be the new version of the F-gas regulation. So you're saying be more ambitious, but are you saying more bans as well?
Yes, but we have what I said in the beginning when we talked about that European manufacturers are leading in natural refrigerants. Mm-hmm. So why should we take this strong argument away? And it's also big manufacturers which are also doing other refrigerants. It's not that they are just focused on that one, but they are leading in that. So why not to force that one and stay European, not having the influence from industry which is coming not from Europe?
Okay. So you see this as a real competitive advantage for Europe to go global with these solutions if there's an ambitious F-gas regulation. So did bans work last time? Did they really help you in your business?
Yes and no.
Okay.
It's always a pro and con. But basically, you can make it over ban, you can make it over taxing, which is for me the more clever solution. If you put in the right tax so it's easy, state can earn money.
That's a national remit thing. No, they can't do that at the European level, not yet at least, for this. So yeah.
If there is no ban, it will not change.
So no ban, no change.
Change, yes, but it has to be different drivers than on a long-term ban, and then it's clear for everybody.
Okay. All right. We have a question for you from Sebastian Visser. Could you give a forecast of the R744 market in terms of supply of CO2 to producers of equipment? Okay, let me read that again. Sebastian is asking, could you give a forecast of the CO2 market in terms of supply of CO2 to producers of equipment? So supply of CO2, the gas, I assume that's not an issue whatsoever. Maybe, Sebastian, you could just follow up with a clarification on that because it's not very clear. Sorry for that. Then we have another question here from Vim. Less polluting is not a real solution, correct. But what about global regulations? EU is self-aware about the green solutions, hope the rest will follow. You wish to comment on that, Andreas?
Somebody has to be the leader, huh?
So somebody has to be the leader, and you're stepping up again today on stage. Europe has to lead, but Europe will not be the only ones. I mean, I participated last week an American equivalent, the AIM Act, the Manufacturing Act, where that will be pushing for a global phase down in the US and possible bans. So the US at the federal level is moving on this again, which is great news for the global industry. So, and they are seeing what Europe did right and what Europe did wrong. And so they are fully aware of what's happening in Europe. And there's going to be a lot of crossover between the two. And both of these markets will have changing regulation over the next 2 years. So it's going to be an exciting time to be in the industry. I'm still waiting for Sebastian Visser to come back with a clarification on that. Are there any other questions? Okay, I have one last one for you until we get another. We've got 3 minutes to go and then we'll be cut off. So HFOs. Okay, HFOs have been proposed as interim solutions in many applications. Interim can mean 20 years though. And what we're seeing is that there's a growing body of evidence suggesting that there's some health and environment issues related to HFOs, TFA in particular, but not only. And in Europe, there's a number of countries that are working on this very closely, and there's an expectation that January 2023, there will be some announcements and possible use restrictions on HFOs in the market. This is, someone everyone in the industry talks about in Europe. How do you interpret that? What's your opinion on this?
Why should I have an opinion on something which is already dead? What's the reason to go for these refrigerants? Tell me one.
Business as usual. Relationships. That have existed for decades in many cases. You just don't want to change things. Our industry is quite conservative. It doesn't like change. And if you're talking to the same guys for many years and they only have a certain number of solutions, you'll be happy with that, right? Unless you're being forced to change. But all right, so you're basically seeing these HFO solutions as dead. And are you expecting more and more end users to just say, look, there's just so much uncertainty as to the future of HFOs. Why bother? We've got credible solutions already using naturals today. Is that the message that you'll be conveying to them?
Yes, and the problem is always the price, because sometimes units with HFO is cheaper than the other one. That's the only driver. Mm-hmm. And it's the same game like we said before. You need to make a decision and be clearly, because there is solutions.
All right.
Done.
All right, Andreas, I'm going to have to cut you off. We're about to be cut off now in literally 5 seconds. Sebastian just slipped in a question now. So before Luhan cuts us off, my apologies. To clarify, as the demand of liquid CO2 will grow in the coming years, I'm curious if you could shine light on where you believe all this supply is going to originate from. Andreas, did you hear that?
Yeah, not really. Now connection was bad. Okay. I'm sorry.
Okay. We need to go. I'm really sorry, Sebastian. I'm being told that we have to cut off. So thank you very much, Andreas.
Thank you.
Look forward to meeting you in person sometime.